I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy. Think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them...
Hello and welcome again to another episode of Tactical Awareness. This is a Season 1, Episode 5, Going to Your First Event. Now, this is a ongoing series where we are going through in our first season some common beginner topics, trying to get sort of all the jargon shook out, and give maybe some useful evergreen sort of fundamental concepts for playing Infinity and 4 by Corvus Belli. Now, if you haven't listened to episodes 1 through 4, it might be useful to do so because, of course, there's going to be some callbacks during this episode. I'm joined by my fellow hosts, Owen and Dan, for another lively discussion this time around about why it's important and even incredibly useful for a new player, someone new-ish to Infinity, after you played a few games, to go to an Infinity event, play against multiple people, and be exposed to different ways of playing and just playing more than one game in a day. So let's jump in and listen to our hosts talk about going to your first event. Hey, buddy, and welcome back. Today we are talking about the event, the going and playing in an Infinity event. In fact, your first event. This is an ongoing series where we are, of course, going through and talking about some kind of like getting into Infinity fundamentals. So whether you're a veteran wargamer, whether you are a brand new to tabletop gamer, or you are just trying out a new game, this was designed to kind of like ease you through the process. And as a callback warning, we are going to reference some stuff from episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this season 1 of Tactical Awareness and talk about it. So if you hear any terms you don't understand, go back and listen to those episodes. So going all the way back to last episode, we talked a little bit about feelings, about how it can feel when things go wrong and getting good at playing bad. I think it's a big sort of like common theme to people when they get into Infinity. It's kind of unforgiving and brutal rule set in the beginning. Stuff can just die. You don't have a lot of pieces, so there's not a lot of like do-overs when things die. And we got some feedback on those feelings episodes, so let's dive into that before we get into the topic of the week. And the first one was active turn dodging. I had a hot take on active turn dodging, and it was kind of the one we had the most like discussion about. The big take that we kind of got almost overall was for people that have only been playing N4, it's just part of the game. It's kind of as common as like using smoke to get around a corner, or zero vis eclipse grenades and stuff like that. It's just a mechanic that is part of the game, and I get that feeling, but also coming from N3 with Owen and watching that like lurch of having to learn a new mechanic, I get the emotional reaction I think that took place too. And I think that's valid still. So the last part that was kind of a question for Owen, I guess, from the audience was if it's just part of the game, like why would you go so hard on the no take backs thing? Because that was something you kind of like you kind of jumped on during the episode. So did you want to talk a bit more about that? Like what was your intent behind that?
I mean, there's not too much more to say on it. Like my perspective is that fine, it's an aspect of the game. There's lots of aspects of the game that are gamey, and I view this as one of them. I know people had a lot of different opinions on like other interactions that were like silly or things like that, or a lot of things in N3, like the one that I bring up all the time is the Chasseur and Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I think another one that came up was using a spotlight hacking program to dodge a missile, because technically it does, because it's face to face. A lot of people find that weird, and it is weird. Anytime you have two things affecting each other and the dice are being rolled, generally it's face to face, and you can cancel a guided missile attack as long as that person's in your zone of control with a spotlight.
Okay, fair enough. I haven't heard that one.
So if the missile bot has like a as in like one of your repeaters ranges, when it shoots you in your hacker, you could spotlight that missile bot. And because it was face to face, because it's two affecting skills, then they would cancel each other. And it sounds weird, but that's how it works, right? Anytime two effects are opposed and dice are being rolled by both active and reactive models, then it becomes face to face and one cancels the other.
Why would being spotlit affect the outcome of the other one?
Because they're a face to face roll. That's the general rules of face to face rolls in Infinity.
No. The requirement to be a face to face roll is that it has to affect the other.
It does. It creates a state. It creates the targeted state.
But that doesn't affect the action that person's doing.
Does. No, it's not. It doesn't require it. It just requires dice to be rolled. It causes a status effect, and it's non-lethal, but it causes a status effect on the. It's just like a blind grenade being non-lethal. It causes an effect, right? So it does actually stop it. It's one that came up in the comments like a bunch of times over. How
is
those
this FAQ'd somewhere then?
It's reiterated in the FAQ, but it's a core mechanic of the game.
Because the core mechanic is for actions to be resolved with a face-to-face roll, both troopers must affect each other directly. Yep, if either action does not affect the outcome of the other, use normal rolls.
And it does, because the action affects the outcome because it creates a state on the other model. And just because the state's targeted doesn't mean that it doesn't affect the other model. So it causes a face-to-face roll. I know it's breaking your brain right now and you hate it and it's not right, but it is actually the way the rules work.
Okay.
And generally speaking, that is the key rule, is that if both players are rolling dice and causing an effect or status effect on each other over the course of an arrow, then you would be face to face and one would cancel the other.
So spotlight stops every attack. It's always a face to face roll.
If it's targeting the model.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you're both targeting each other,
and I do spotlight.
Yep, absolutely.
It'll always be
and vice versa. If someone was like if you were in like Trinity range with a hacker, but you chose to like shoot your shotgun instead, they would affect each other. So shotgunning a guy who's trying to Trinity you would be face to face.
Okay.
It makes more sense there, you know what I mean? Or like oblivioning you. If someone's trying to oblivion you and you're firing your shotgun, the targeted one kind of makes the least sense because it's non-lethal. But
oblivion doesn't make any sense either. Why does isolated state cause my attack to no longer function? Isolated as a state doesn't change the effect.
Because it's like shutting down your visor, it's shutting down your computer. You know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of like you could think of a bunch of
Carbonite makes sense because immobilize does prevent you from shooting.
But let's say that like Oblivion is causing your whole helmet to shut down and you have to like pull your helmet off now to see and you can't talk to anybody. Like there's a bunch of reasons why Oblivion could also work, right? It's like screwing up your telemetry or something. Like I don't want to argue like the background semantics of it. I'm just saying that those are that they don't feel right in the same sort of way as the active dodging does.
Then to go to my point, then the fact that there are other ones does not change this in any way.
No, absolutely. And you're having the same emotional reaction right now.
Listening to this is like, but that's not what the rules say. Like I can read the line. It does not affect the outcome of the other. It doesn't.
They know if it does not affect the outcome, it affects the status of the other.
But that's not what the rules say. The rules say if either action does not affect the outcome of the other, use normal rules. Being targeted would not affect the outcome of a shot.
In this case, it does because it has an attack line. It has an attack line and it creates a status effect, even though it's not lethal.
And Discover has a move, and it's not a move.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with the fact that rules like that are like they're antithetical to the way their own rules are written, and so I have a reaction to it. Like
I think mechanically it works. I think that because it uses an attack profile, right? Like Spotlight has an attack profile just like a Trinity does. They have the exact same attack profile. It just happens to not have a damage stat and be non-lethal. And there's a bunch of arguments actually. People making comments about that in general, like how Spotlight should have a damage. Give Spotlight damage 13 non-lethal and make it a BTS roll. And that way you can actually avoid Spotlights. Because right now you can't even avoid it once you're hit by it, right? It just creates a status effect. If it was more like Oblivion, right, where it had a damage profile and you got to save against it afterwards. I don't know what is that Oblivion? What am I thinking of?
No,
maybe I'm thinking of they do. Yeah, they have a damage stat. Yeah,
yep,
but it was more like that, where like it would make more sense that they're face to face, right? Because yes, it has a damage stat, and yes, you're making a save roll just like any other attack. So them being face to face kind of feels more right. But just the fact that it's non-lethal and it creates an effect is sort of like the net result at the end, as opposed to causing a wound. So anyway, yeah, short story long now as we get into the weeds about this. Those are all examples, I think, great examples, and the audience kind of our listeners kind of came up with a bunch of other examples of stuff that has that same kind of status effect, not status effect, mental effect, and creates like these situations where you kind of feel betrayed by the rules a little bit, and you kind of feel like you don't like you're in a position that you didn't necessarily intuit yourself into, and you have to like sit back and redigest, and obviously I think the net result, and everybody can agree, is that if you start in a place where that's the norm and you don't come from somewhere where the rule was different, then you're going to not have that same kind of reaction to it. So I get that from the listeners as well, how if this is just always the way it was, it's just a core part of the game, and just like using eclipse grenades or blind grenades or something like that, you're able to like, and you don't get that same sort of like emotional reaction from it. Other comment, there's some other things like that. Total immunity, for instance, like the fact that forward observing, you're immune to being forward observed, but not spotlit. So you can still be targeted, but total immunity actually makes you immune to the targeted state from being forward observed because it's a BS attack. But the hacking program works. So like you have this weird like corner case where you can still suffer the state, but you're immune to it if it comes one way and not immune if it comes from a different way, which kind of doesn't make any sense. And yeah, and just other sort of like similar kind of interactions that were in that kind of vein. So that was kind of those are big takeaways from the last episode, which I thought was good. I think it stirred up a healthy discussion. And at the end it was sort of like it just sort of reiterated the point that everybody's going to react differently to different things. I think we said that in the beginning, Dan. You said that only competitive people can tilt. And I think that the great thing that we kind of saw from the listeners afterwards was that statement I made afterwards, which was like, I think people can tilt for all kinds of reasons. Like if they just didn't even know what a model was being proxied as, like it can cause tilt. And we got all of that kind of as a response, all different sort of like gamut of those things.
I think the spotlight thing's just made up.
All right. I mean, I'm 99% sure it's right.
It's not referenced at all in the FAQ. The closest you get,
Owen's doubling down now.
The closest you get, which I agree is also weird that it comes up in the FAQ, is the fact that non-lethal attacks that you have total immunity against can be used in face-to-face against total immunity guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's silly. Why would he even? It should be like Berserk.
It shouldn't care. The bear doesn't care.
Like if you're gonna hit me with something that isn't gonna affect me, why am I afraid of being hit by it? Like that's kind of my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But that's as close as you get. Other than that, like Carbonite, it references multiple times because Carbonite would prevent you from doing an attack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever. Maybe somebody will post a link somewhere to some obscure forum thread or like an iteration of the rules.
I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be that you're just trying to Model A is trying to do something to Model B, and it required a dice roll.
There'll be a Twitter post by some developer.
I don't think that's it.
This is my
I think it's way simpler. I think you're looking for proof that you don't need to look for.
So here's an argument though, is that if I have an attack that can only do one wound, I guess you can always crit. Let's say you're a tag, you have 3 hit points. If I crit even, it's impossible for you to die. Then why is it a face-to-face roll if it's not changing the outcome?
Because it causes a status effect and they're trying to affect each other. If two, wait, so I'm on the wiki right now.
That's more for Owen.
Oh, I gotcha. I see what you're saying.
So it's like, because I'm just confused at all. It's like, because like, what is the face-to-face roll?
So face-to-face roll, as the Infinity Wiki for N4 defines, which I'm on right now, is when 2 or more troopers act at the same time to try and thwart each other's progress. Doesn't say affect each other, it says thwart each other's progress. Face-to-face rolls are used to determine which side acts faster and more effectively. To do so, both players roll for their troopers involved in the face-to-face roll and compare each result to their success value as they would in a normal roll. Failures are simply discarded. Unlike a normal roll, each side's successes are compared to each other's. When comparing successes, cancel other enemy successes with a lower result. That's important. For actions to be resolved with a face-to-face roll, both troopers must affect each other directly. If either action does not affect the outcome of the other, the normal rolls are used. And that's it. That's the definition of a face-to-face roll. Is if they affect each other, then it's face-to-face. And so targeted would be a face-to-face roll with ABS attack.
How do you reason dodging that?
Well, how do you reason forward observing? You can forward observe and be shot, and the forward observe roll can cancel the shooting attack.
That's what I'm saying is you shouldn't. And
okay, but I'm saying, but it does.
My argument is because if either action does not affect the, well, my point is that like Like,
But they do affect each other, right? It creates a state on the other model. And the
it
idea is
doesn't
that
affect the outcome.
but it doesn't say it has to affect the outcome. The
It
rules here
does.
say
It does
no,
actually. That big red box that you read, where it says if either effect does not affect the
they,
outcome of the
no,
other,
it doesn't say the
use
outcome. It
normal
says for actions to be resolved with a face-to-face roll, both troopers must affect each other directly. If either action does not affect the outcome of the other, use face-to-face rolls instead.
So,
they
it
do
does
affect
exactly say what I said. If
Right, but
either
the-
action does not affect the outcome of the other.
but they do affect the outcome of the other. If someone shoots you before you forward observe them, then you're affected. If someone forward observes you before you shoot them, that's the opposed roll there, right? So they affect each other, and they can affect the outcome of each other. But saying that sticking your head up and forward observing someone faster than they can pull up a gun and shoot you doesn't affect each other is, I don't understand what the disconnect that you're having here is, I guess is what I'm saying. But we'll take this offline for the sake of brevity and the fact that we're getting down a rabbit hole right now, and we'll let the listeners hash this one out in the Discord afterwards. And if I'm wrong, I will eat shit for it. I promise you. I will absolutely own. I will get on my hands and knees and tell you you're right and that you're the greatest rules reader of all time.
No, I'm probably wrong because that's just the way it is these days, it seems.
Okay,
it's always been that way, though. It's always been that way with FOs.
I'm just confused.
Guns.
So just to clarify, is it if someone's attacking you and you can roll something at them, then it's a face-to-face?
If two skills, right? So let's say forward observe, which is a skill, and BS attack, which is a skill, are targeting the models who are like the active and reactive model. So if an active model is targeting the reactive model and the reactive model in turn is targeting the active model, then because dice are being rolled, it becomes face-to-face. Right.
Okay,
So
if you
anytime you're
roll-
doing something that would affect the person who is active or reactive, then those two rolls become opposed and one can cancel the other. The idea being that, like, let's say you're trying to stick your head up and forward observe somebody to give them the targeted state, and that person's trying to shoot you to keep your head down. Then those two rolls would be opposed, and one can cancel the other.
Okay, so why is dodge opposed then?
Because it rolls dice. You have to make a fizz check.
Right, but you're not affecting the other person or targeting them.
You are affecting them because you're affecting the outcome of the result, because dodge is like a reset, is a cancellation of their attack. So just like a forward observe, just because it doesn't
I can actually give you a better answer, Dan, because
Okay.
it specifically states that dodge is a face-to-face.
Yeah, is always a face-to-face roll, as is reset. Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
But just because it's I guess it's a reactive skill. I guess it's also an active skill now too, because it's in the active turn. But it's rolling dice is generally the rule. If you are rolling dice in opposition to somebody else's skill, then you are face-to-face. But that's the same reason why a direct template isn't a face-to-face roll, right? Because there's no dice rolled when you lay a template.
Right. Except if it's a blast.
So
like a
blast
missile
isn't a
launcher.
direct template. A blast is an impact template, which is different.
There you go.
Right. But an impact template is one roll compared to everybody else's rolls. It's just basically a multiple face-to-face roll, as opposed to the template, which doesn't require a roll to succeed. You have to succeed in your skill check for the template to actually have an effect on anything that's touching it. All right. Well,
All right. Well, if you say so.
that's the definition of face-to-face roll. Well, the rules, they cause emotional reactions. So let's jump into what's been going on this week. You guys just played 2 games in a row, and as Owen cycles through his armies and units that are fun to skew, Dan got to experience some new units today. So what mission did you guys play, and how did it go?
We played Armory. And so, like, on paper, I'm like reading Armory. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be all close combat, just fighting around in this thing. And then I realized quite quickly it's a glass house as well. It's so easy to see inside of it and almost impossible to get cover. And so I'm like, oh, well, I didn't bring a list that's super great against this.
I almost always put some crates or something inside, like in the middle, just so that somebody can get some cover at some point going inside, because otherwise, you're right, it's like total turkey shoot in there.
Oh, can you do that? You can put stuff in the building?
Yeah, why not? It's just a train piece, right? The building itself is defined, but the interior, you can put extra train in, put scatter and stuff like that. Nothing stop you from doing it.
Well, there you go. Anyway,
Neither side benefited from terrain.
it was a turkey shoot. Yeah, and I was playing O12, and he was playing Hack a Slam, and his hackers are better than mine, and also Sundic Bud is better than everything I have,
Sunday butt.
and
Oh no.
and yeah, I was like, oh, that's what that does. Oh, okay. And then the dice weren't like super great for me either. And so I was like, I got a Panzerfaust through the back of him. Oh, he survived. Okay, well.
Yeah, Sunday butt is great in this meta too, because viral rifles are just like the answer to all the bears and all the things that are not immune to viral.
I had this great moment where Hippolyta was unconscious in there, and then Parvati sent in one of her bots to suicide to resurrect.
She's unconscious in
Hippolyta.
there, and 2 Alpha Zids are suppressing, and the Sundic Butt are in the room.
Oh my god.
But anyway,
All right.
carry on.
So then my bronze is in the room. The other guy suppressing is outside the room, and I'm going second. And so if Hippolyta can kill Sundic Bud, then I'll have more points in the zone. And so I get her up. The bot gets just destroyed as like 9 attacks targeted. Was it 9? 6?
11, no, 10.
Yeah, 10 attacks, just blow it up. And then Hippolyta gets up, and it's like, all right, time to berserk. And I fly across the room 6 inches, and I just go, wah! And I get a plus 10, no crits.
Oh my
so
god.
it's like, what are you going to do? So I hit him, explosive close combo weapon. He needs to make like a 14 save to be alive, and he makes all 3.
Oh.
And so
Betrayal.
otherwise, that was like a tie to maybe either one of us winning. Probably. Anyways, it was gonna be a close game because I got the zone first turn, and that was the second turn. And third turn, he was definitely gonna do because everything else was gonna be dead. And then we re-racked and played again. And I had to go first, and then it's so much hard going first on that mission.
Yeah.
Trying to hold that zone, and then I made some silly choices, and it was just kind of you never until you like experience the close combat craziness with the outside shooting and all the different decisions you have to make and all the ramifications of mines and just there's just so much going on. It's you have to play it to even comprehend what's going on.
Yeah, it's a great mission. Funneling everything into actually it gets even worse when you get to Panic Room, because it's like a mini biotech 4, except it's coming from all 4 sides and it's slowly creeping towards the room because you have to try and get in the Panic Room by the end, and there's like this like killer cold or death zone or whatever that's like creeping up on you. That's you should try Panic Room next after Armory, because it's Armory on steroids. Like it's just like it's an extra level of insanity because you're trying to get there as quick as you can, or hold near the heaters that are also slowly like turning off, so that you can hold that zone. So like the pressure is really on to go into it, and you can't really have overwatching pieces that are capable of like they might survive, but they can't end the game outside the death zone. And then you have to get that craziness going even quicker. It's fun though on a big killy piece like Hippolyta that tends to like have to pick their moment on a big open table, gets to really shine. You know what I mean? He gets to pull like a full Rorschach and be like, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me at the end of the game.
Yeah. The second game, I was like, I'll just kill this guy that's in melee with me. And I'm in melee, so you can't. You're gonna Sundic Butt 4 shots into me, and then hit that crit on a 4, and then destroy me.
Just remember, Owen's troopers' lives are always short and cheap. There's not
Ghazi's lives are even shorter.
That's right. Yeah, the day Lamis don't live
he
very long.
dodges and engages a Ghazi, and I'm like, I'm okay with this.
This is the best possible outcome for me.
Sundic Butt walks into the room and stands behind you. Go nuts.
It just looms. Yeah, that's Owen's willingness to sell the lives of his own men is what's the word? It's Branniginian in nature. He'll happily send them wave after wave of his men into the death bots.
Yeah, I tried to do the same thing where I was like, 9-point model, walk up and double, chain call. Oh, this goes up and and then he just kept making his armor saves. So I was like, well, what are you gonna do?
That's funny.
Dan was learning the piece trading aspect by the end of the second game, where it was like, wait a second, I don't have to come out of this room alive if I just template everywhere, and either he dies or he dodges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, peace trading is a huge thing. We haven't actually defined, I think, peace trading yet, and that might be a useful season 2 topic to talk about, because we're trading up with cheap pieces and template pieces and direct template weapons and CC attacks and stuff like that, or even just like trading up by like jamming onto a model. You know what I mean? Yeah, throwing like a cheap warband into base to base with a tag and forcing it to waste like 2, 3 forwarders, like dodging away or trying to like finally crush me with your hands. It's a skill in and of itself, and it's a big making orders futile is a big part of the infinity learning curve after you kind of like got the fundamentals down. So it'd be a good one, I think, to do like a separate topic on. So what did you take, Owen, overall? Obviously the highlights we heard from Dan were Sonic Boot, Gazi. What else was in this list? I was ran 2 Alpha Zeds in a room suppressing.
Yeah.
I heard 200 points of your army and
it was
like 5 models.
It was like 9 orders. It wasn't even really an army.
No,
and like Saladin, and then some like cheapo camo that never moved. It was just the things that you heard were the only ones that acted in the game.
Oh my god, one of your down with the thickness lists where you just took big boys.
The Alpha Zeds duo each other and then just walk around shooting missiles and HMGs, or shooting rockets and HMGs, and that was it. So
for those of you listening, Owen really is an agent of chaos. Like, he takes things like that no one else really thinks about taking on a whim, and then shoves them into the room and in armory, and makes Hippolyta have to make really bad choices.
Well, the 2 Alpha Zeds are just like, I drop a mine. I drop a mine.
Oh, I forgot the mine layers too.
I drop a mine. Yeah. Oh, I have 6 cents. Okay. He's like, I'm gonna hit you with what's the one, Blackout or whatever it is, Oblivion. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, sorry, you can't. I'm a veteran. That doesn't work on me.
Yeah. Don't care.
You're welcome to try.
I memorized. I wrote the plan on my hand before we deployed.
Yeah.
I learned that rule existed that game. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, veteran is more than just a classification. It's also a skill.
Yes, another time where things get copied twice. And sometimes, man, this is why I didn't want to do like until ITS 15 comes out. I don't really want to do anything on classifieds, because they might just change, and they lean so hard into those classifications that don't make a ton of sense. Like, they make sense from like
some of the factions just don't have any of certain ones.
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's real. I mean, Ariadne does have the war driver, but Tohat has like a defensive hacker, and
not even the hacking ones. I'm talking about things like do you have an HQ troop or like a veteran troop or something?
Oh, HQ and veteran troops, yeah.
Like Steel Phalanx, surprisingly, if I recall correctly, is one of the ones that is like very lacking.
Yeah, well, that's why the ITS thing made all of the name characters HQ troops. So actually, Steel Phalanx has thousands of them, but you don't know they are until you read the start of the ITS booklet, and it says anybody with a name counts as a veteran troop. It's the long service special or whatever.
We're gonna add that in as paragraph number 15 on modifications to the rules for the ITS season.
We're gonna patch this because these guys don't actually have any veteran troops. They just have war bands and light infantry.
Yeah.
So So just briefly, without going too far off topic, like I'm like clicking through on the app, and there's like elite troops, spec trained troops, veteran troops.
It means absolutely nothing until it doesn't.
Until there's like 3 or 4 things in ITS sometimes that will, like, there's one called Net Undermine in the classified deck, which it requires you to be a veteran or HQ troop, and then you get in your opponent's half of the table and pass a whip check and go, I knew all along this was going to be the way this half of the table was, and you score a point. Like, it's like
incredibly easy to get, but you better have the right guy there.
Yeah, as long as you have one person with a name that can step over the line, you just basically automatically get it, because they typically have like a good whip roll. But what Owen and I are sort of kvetching about right now is the fact that it feels tacked on, and it's just kind of a random thing. And so for you listening, people, we won't spend a ton of time on it, because again, it's just sort of a vestigial thing that's probably not going to be around.
It made more sense when there were less random things.
Yeah,
Like-
and when it was more of an RPG or early
Yeah.
editions of the game, those things made sense because they tended to be like how you actually broke an army down.
Garrison troops were the ones you had AVA more than 2.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's or yeah, you had AVA 5. Yeah, garrison troops for that. What was the other one? Veteran troops were always almost
Like
always
one
had the
or
veteran
two.
skill, and you had like 1 or 2. Yeah, that's right. Support troops were always like your weirdo engineers or doctors or hackers. Yeah, it's become more defined over time, but it typically like kind of reflected in your AVA back then. All right, so that's we just got right into the weeds this week. So for me, I have finished off some of my just odds and ends for my OSSS and then did the thing and ordered more. I found an Andromeda for sale, and I also, more importantly, I found someone who had the turquoise tufts that I was using for my steel flanks that I'd run out of. Not my steel flanks, sorry, my OSSS. And they also had an Andromeda, so I just placed rush motor for them. So I picked up a box of Yadus. I picked up another set of the remotes. I picked up a box of posthumans. So the basic posthuman box, because I just want the hacker, AP Spitfire, and the doctor. Because you know you're dropping 48 points for being able to stand 3 places on the board and do all kinds of jobs. And I didn't realize you can also give the doctor a Yudbot if you want, so you can just have it also be able to walk around, so you can just sit up high. And it kind of gives that post-human the inability to die because you hide the doctor and have the Yudbot go out and push the buttons and stuff. So I'm happy with
Also,
that.
I could add that I did collect an army of US Ariad.
Oh, okay. You did that too? That was also this week? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because you had a bunch of odds and ends left, didn't you, after you got rid of your Ariadna when you moved and you like topped it off?
Well, I found the US Ariadna army box and then a collection of the standalones.
I
So
might
that's a thing.
actually resculpt the Devil Dog as my other bear pod. I feel like he'd be a really
He's
good
so
bear
big.
pod.
He's
so
bigger
big
than the other ones too.
I know.
Well,
And the
surprising.
because the bear pod that's the off like the cocaine bear, the one that's not regular and can't take cover. Cocaine bear has a shotgun as opposed to having a chain rifle. So
the standalone Devil Dog does have a shotgun, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a shotgun. Yeah, there's one with a knife and one with a shotgun. One with a pistol and a knife, which is just weird, and then the other one is a shotgun. So I might use the
Pistol
shotgun
knife is
one.
the starter set one.
Yeah, that's the starter set one. Yeah, so I think I might use the shotgun one as my cocaine bear and like resculpt his head, or like maybe try and like cast the head of the bear pod and have like a second bear, and do double bear when I get around to doing my Cosmoflot. So that was me this week. I didn't get to play any games, but I do have some games coming up. I did build a whole table of Bandua terrain, their container city, which I'm pretty pumped for because we have oversold now Winter War, and I'm having to make extra tables of terrain, which I'm excited about it. The table itself is pre-painted. It's the ready for battle stuff from Bandua, and it's kind of like these giant, they're like a foot long and probably like 5 or 6. They're taller than what I'm excited about is they're taller than a size 8 profile. So they're taller than the Maggie. So Maggie can't just climb over top of it, but it'll be this cool kind of like container inside of a spacecraft table. And it's got some gantries and some like fuel pods. And then all the scatter train that came with it is piles of tires, which I thought was really neat. It's just loose tires and you just glue them together into like tire piles. So it's going to have this neat kind of like scatter around it as well. So that's the 11th table. I had 10. I'll have to figure out a 12th or else we bring one down. Maybe if we do go to 24. We're at 22 paid. We have 2 people registered who said they're going to send through their payments tonight. I am going to lock when this episode comes out on Monday. I am locking registration for Winter War at midnight on Monday, so that I can have 2 weeks to get any extra materials I need ready to actually like support the event. I'm not going to let any registration happen after that. So if you didn't register and you haven't heard all my shouts on Facebook and on Discord and various other places about going and getting registered, and you're hoping to come down, you have until midnight Monday, I think the 9th, the 8th. What's the date today? The 4th? Yeah, the 8th. Or the 9th. Yeah. So go get registered and I will make it happen. I will figure out how to find more terrain. I think we're gonna run out of swag, but I'll make the terrain happen. Everyone will get to play at least. So that was my week this week. And then let's dive into the topic.
I also collected a bunch more O12.
Oh, did you really? What?
Yeah, Boxing
Okay.
Day sale. I got a Monstrucker
Oh,
because I
nice.
thought he'd be useful. You
Mhm.
can could throw some fast pandas and stuff. I got a Raptor box. I also got the alpha or the beta box. So I got the whatever it was with
The
the
alpha.
links,
Yeah, the alpha's
the,
amazing.
the links in it. So I know now I have two of them. So I have two Lynxes and two Razors.
Nice.
And it was just kind of like I took a moment and looked at, because O12 and Starmada have so much overlap. I was just kind of like looking what makes O12 unique, and I kind of wanted to just focus on O12 and leave Starmada for a while, just because I was kind of swapping back and forth too much. And
Yeah.
so just looking at O12, and it's just like, yeah, Team Serious, the Gangbusters, the Lynxes, the Razors, just all that fun stuff of like, or even the Gammas and the Omega. And it was just like, okay, well, how can I use these to more effect? But then also, it's like, how can I use the duos that are available to me with like Varangian Guard? I also got two Varangian Guard.
They're amazing. Do
yeah,
you get the Raven Eye? Yeah, you have the Raven Eye officer too, right?
I do not have. I often proxy it, but I do not have a Raven Eye.
So
So
good.
so hard to get a hold of.
I know,
don't
because
how
it was
to
a
get that
pre it was
model.
it was a pre-order miniature. There'll be an official one that comes out soon, but it was a pre-order miniature because of I think it came as a pre-order with the Morats. So
was-
they're relatively hard to find.
He was the one who he searched, got multi-spectre visor level 1, hid in the corner, went on light a mine and went on suppression, and then he discovered the mine and blew up the mine and blew up the Raven Eye. That was that was part of that story.
I mean, for 12 points, you can't go wrong. 12-point EM Emarat, and then EM Mine Layer. He is a legit hero. And you can have two of them in Starmada, but just you get the one at least. I think always. And it can be a lieutenant, which I think is amazing too. Like, why not just have a Whip 13 lieutenant just laying in the back, laying mines?
And it's cool because like the Kappa can be a lieutenant, but it costs 1 Swick.
Mhm.
But then the Raven Eye just
It's free.
doesn't.
Yeah,
just,
no
you just
Swick.
get it. So it's like,
no
why ever
SWC
break a
cost.
Kappa?
Yeah, he's just better in every way. You get the Tiangu too, which is cool. It's a really neat, like, it has holo projector. It has a couple of cool like Red Fury profiles with holo projector too, with surprise attack and one layer. And can take mad traps. So there's a neat it's like a little one and done Yu Ching, kind of like not mercenary, but like everyone O12 seems to get lots of like seconded troops, you know, people who've been like seconded to you from either Aleph or other factions. Like you get
I also got the Casanova box, and then I gave the Shazvasti guy to Owen.
oh nice. Yeah, he's weird, but he's neat. And he's not that expensive, like 30 something points for an SMG like close up specialist stealth guy.
I think he's like 20 something points.
33.
Oh, never mind.
No, he's 33. And he's 33 because he has like a laundry list of skills. He has like martial arts 2, mind layer, courage, forward deployment 8, dodge +3, immunity shock, mimetism -6, specialist, stealth, and no wounding cap. And he's BTS 6, which is interesting. He's BTS 6. I'm not sure why he's BTS 6, because he has EM mines with his whatchamacallit, his mine layer. So you can drop EM mines or shock mines, and then he's got a monofilament close combat weapon.
That's why I like them. It's like the no wounding in cap, the immunity shock, mimetism -6, and mind layer. And so you just you can go up and kind of own one part of the board and be like, okay, come at me. Let's see what happens.
He also has a monofilament close combat weapon -3. I don't know what the -3 means. I think it actually means you have to save it on
No, it imposes an additional -3 when fighting in close combat.
Oh, in CC, you're right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
CC weapon -3. Yeah. It's a minus. So on top of his martial arts -2, he's CC -3 with that weapon. So he's -6 to hit him back, which is bonkers. Yeah, he's basically mimetism in melee. He's pretty neat. He's pretty neat for sure. He's supposed to be Spike Spiegel.
I don't know who that is.
What? He's Spike
And
Spiegel.
doesn't watch cartoons.
Oh, Dan, you wasted your life.
I mean, I might know who it is, but I don't know by the name.
Spike, you would know. He's from Cowboy Bebop. He's a very
I've
famous
never watched that. I've never
anime.
watched that.
He's a very famous anime character that you should go and watch now.
So.
Cowboy Bebop is basically Infinity, the TV show, so you should definitely go watch it.
Did I ever tell you how I hated the aspect of Infinity? Everything about the anime part of it. That's why I never played it before. Because I was like, this is garbage. These models are.
You've told me lots of things that are wrong with you. That's just one of them. You're allowed. You won't hate this one. I promise. This one's the least anime.
That's what you said about Infinity, and here we are.
And here we are, exactly. Yeah.
Now I own almost the whole faction.
I know. He's got all of the O12. He's be buying the Bakun and Cat Girls next. All right. So that was the longest intro ever. Let's jump in now. For those of you who patiently stuck with us as we bicker for like 45 minutes, and talk about your first event. So the point of this whole episode is we're trying to do things chronologically, right? By episode 5, you've gone through some list making fundamentals. You've looked and figured out how to use a fire team. You've learned how to read a mission and gone in and played your first game. And then you've got to chew on results, right? You've figured out how to chew on how the game went and if it didn't go well and things that didn't go your way. And so we're talking about events today. And this felt really kind of poignant because I'm about to run an event myself. Tactical Awareness is doing the Winter War, and we're trying to do them quarterly. So I did want to run a type of event where we hadn't done a big event in a long time here in Canada, in Ontario especially, and I wanted to keep it simple because people different, sort of like backgrounds in Infinity were coming together. It was the first N4 big event for Toronto too, or Southern Ontario, and while there's a lot of like styles of events you can play Infinity in, I want this episode to reference the ITS Tournament Pack because it's the most commonly used and freely available style of event. I also want to acknowledge that this event can take place both physically and virtually, but the primary focus for this episode is going to be in-person gatherings that are traditionally held for these types of events. All right, so let's jump in. When you first start playing any game, it can feel like a really big stretch from starting out to going to your first event. It can sometimes seem like everybody knows more than you, and they're going to be more prepared than you are and know more, and you kind of have this like looking over your shoulder feeling like everything's gonna gotcha. Like there's some danger behind every box during the game, and it's entirely possible this is true. Events can call together a whole mix and range of experience levels of players into a single place. So why you should attend an Infinity event early in playing the game, and become comfortable with the rules, I think is for a bunch of reasons. But I've got 5 here that I've laid out that I think are important for newer players, and I really should encourage people to go and jump into trying to play an event early on in playing the game. So again, caveat, you should know the basic core fundamentals of the rules. You should have played at least a couple games and know how to move and shoot with your guys. But you don't need to be too far into the game. I would say that Dan was probably ready to play in an Infinity event like after like the first 2 weeks of playing. So reasons why you should. You get to play at least 3 games in a day. It's just a good day of gaming. So going to an Infinity event means that you get to play back-to-back games. And there's something about getting reps of a game in that makes you more comfortable with it. This is a big one for me and Owen that we used to talk about. You get to be exposed to more types of armies than you might normally get to play against, and more ways those armies get played. It's really easy when you first start playing to only see the strengths and weaknesses of like your most common opponent's armies, and you tend to think that that's how the game works. And once you get exposed to more players and more armies, you kind of settle down into, oh, it's all chaos. And you watch your common opponent who thrashes you with certain tactics get thrashed themselves. You get to play a collection of models through multiple strategic challenges and learn even more about what they're good and bad at doing. So you get to play different missions back to back and see what maybe the same list is good and bad at. You practice your communication skills and manage your own tilt, which is super important. And you can get cool swag for your army from the ITS packs, pins, patches, like just stuff you can't buy. Events are great for any level of Infinity player, but I would offer that they're actually the most valuable at the beginning of your experience because the socially driven nature of the game tends to build confidence and you get more comfortable with it more quickly. Have you been to an event yet, Dan?
I have not.
No? Is there any coming up? I think there's an ITS in January I was just looking at
in February, there's the Carbonite one.
Oh, there's Colder Than Carbonite. I thought there was going to be like a dojo event. I'm just looking at your community.
I know there was a whole bunch of conversation around it, but I
There was a
don't
game. There was a
know.
game day for sure. I saw there was a games day for Sentry Box planned because I spy on what you guys have going on. In your
So
community.
every Saturday, there's a bunch of people who get together and play at Century Box.
Right.
But,
Yeah, not an official event, but the Colder Than Carbonite satellite event is coming up relatively soon out
yeah,
there, which
I
will
don't
be a
know if I
possibility for you
want
to go.
to spend a weekend in Edmonton. It's like a 3-hour drive, which
That's
isn't
fair, yeah.
terrible, but like I went. That was the Malifaux tournament I went to like last month,
Right.
2 months ago. But
I don't want to go because the scenario choices are atrocious.
Oh,
But-
don't start throwing shade, Jesus. Owen. I mean, I
Oh,
guess now
tell
you
us
have
why
to.
we
Now
should
you have
go-
to tell us why. Now, I guess you have to tell us why. So, what's your umbrage about this? And stop using hyperbole just instantly. Jesus Christ.
Oh, I don't even know what they are.
I don't even know what they are. Fuck's
So,
sakes.
wait, why are we going to
Hang on.
tournaments?
He's
Why are we
like,
going
what,
to tournaments?
what
What's going on?
country are we in? He doesn't even know what he's talking about. He just made an assumption. I'm
I'm
looking
just
I'm
gonna make
convinced.
claim.
No,
I'm just gonna make claims.
He's gonna throw claims out there.
I'm totally
I'm
convinced.
looking at it,
I need to
I'm-
go to a tournament.
I think you should. I think you definitely should. So it's okay. It's firefight, supplies, power pack, countermeasures, and unmasking. How is that a bad selection of event?
I don't know. I didn't
there's
know which
nothing-
measures they were.
You did. Jesus. Oh my god.
Look, I'm only gonna make
Um,
informed statements on this podcast, okay?
All right. So everything
Inform
Owen
by
says is a
something.
lie, including this. Everything I say is the truth, except for the lies, and this is also the truth. Right, so now that I'm completely off the rails, let's talk one more time about HVTs and classifieds. We're not going to talk too much about that, even though we're going to talk about events. I'm still not going to dive too much, even though we talked about them a little bit earlier, to try and keep these evergreen. And the sort of like discussion of them, getting too in the weeds of them might not be useful in the future. So we might not talk too much about HVTs and classifieds. So let's talk about the steps then for an event. And I think Dan's gonna have some useful feedback on this one anyway, because he's been to lots of events for other games. But there's some nuts and bolts stuff for playing in an Infinity event for the first time. So first things, preparing to go. You should register on the Infinity website. Because OTM is run completely through the Infinity website. That's the online tournament manager for Infinity. It's one of I can't say enough good things about the digital assets for this game. I think Owen and I have long compared everyone's free online army building app to Infinity Army. I'll say it again. It's the
And
best.
even the paid ones.
And even the paid ones, yeah. We definitely. I remember when you first started playing Infinity, and you were looking at War Room and being like, "Why is this free? Like, I paid $70 for this War Room app, and this is just free." It melted your brain early on. So by registering for the Infinity website and using Infinity Army, you can save your lists, and you can actually save them in the cloud, which is really handy because I'll noodle on my phone all the time and make lists. And as long as on the app on my phone, or even on the app on your desktop, if you're logged into your profile for your ITS handle, and once you create the profile on the Infinity website, you can then save your lists to the cloud. It also allows you to upload them digitally later on, and that's really, really cool because it lets the inclusion of certain units and lists that don't have a model. So if something's really commonly being proxied, then Corpus Belli can see that because it's being used in tournaments, but no model exists for it. It gets pushed up in the production line. And we've seen tons of models that might not be like the army feature for this year get new sculpts based on them being included in that metadata. So it's really, I always encourage people, always upload your lists because it's really useful for CB to see what's being used, especially if it doesn't have a model or the models are out of production or older or something like that. Then, like I just did, you can find an event online. So once you've got your profile made, it'll kick you to your local area. And when you go to the community tab on the Infinity website, you can see and browse all the ITS events in your area, and also non-tournament events. There's also like painting nights, Krugs. You can post as a Warcore any kind of event up there, and leagues for learning games and stuff. There's a ton of other stuff out there that you can go and browse to try and subscribe to. And then you subscribe to the event on the OTM. There's like a little button that says subscribe, and you contact the organizer and then pay any required ticket fees. That's like the nuts and bolts of like finding an event near you. Then you got to check out the missions. So you got to find out what you're playing, how many rounds the event's going to be, and what the winning conditions are. And this is one that I want to get the feedback from Owen about, because there's a bunch of sort of like opinion out there right now that you can kind of just play any mission by killing. And Owen used to subscribe to that pretty hard. I wonder, after having played quite a bit now in the last month and a half, how do you feel about the current mission pack and whether or not that's still true?
Oh, it's 100% still true.
Okay, can you elaborate?
Like,
I like that you're just Captain Hyperbole. Like, everything's 100%, 110%. Everything's a million billion times.
Sources, I made it up.
We're such a reputable podcast.
No, there's a lot of moving pieces in the current like scenario sets of like, I think it's cryo something where there's
the new one. Yeah.
The 4 boxes and you unlock them, and then there's like a 60-40 that there's going to be an HVT in it.
Yep.
And then if you don't find those, then they become the HVTs, and then you have to dominate every quarter, but then the quarters with HVTs are worth more. And then if you have Jimmy, the special man, in the one, you get an additional point, but each round that he's in, but not at the end. And it's like
the key ops is Jimmy the special man.
This is a lot of extra text for I kill 2/3 of your army, and then I just do button pushing until the game ends.
Sure. And but you have to dominate the zones of control near the
HVT.
No, there's round scoring in that one too, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
So
turn
killing isn't necessarily going to win you that game, because you could also just camp the round scoring for the zones and make yourself inaccessible, right? Be in like a marker state, or be like hiding on a rooftop or something like that.
I guess my perspective is I always find it harder to set up good defenses than it is to dismantle defenses. And so,
especially in a mission pack where everyone's got super jump for free all of a sudden.
Right. And so like your ability to just go out and remove anything that could stop whatever defense, like Sundukbut has problems with long range enemies. So you're like, here's my 2 Fides that kill everyone who could reach out and hurt him, and that he is sitting 8 inches up in the middle of the board. Back to you.
Sure.
Like,
so
I'll get to the points eventually. But
I guess what I'm saying is, you're talking about you are talking about moving pieces though, right? We're not talking about killing in the form of just like having a couple of models of Rambo across the table, or Warband's Rambo across the table, and just do so much damage that like the game is irrecoverable from the beginning. Like Sundukbut's doing like reactive damage, you know what I mean? Like the Fides are like scalping out specific like pieces that can hurt the Sundukbut.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. That was my perspective when it's like, I don't need to play this scenario if I have all of the right tools to scalpel your list apart.
Do you think that the scenario packs are varied enough that you can't do that every game, right? That like you can't just set up Sundukbut, have Fides go kill things that can kill Sundukbut, and then win, right? Like if that's the core like 1-2 of that list build, do you feel like there's enough like variety in the mission pack to make it so that's not viable every time?
I mean, I've only played one event since I've started playing again,
right?
And in that one event, that 1-2-3 combo was the only thing I played all day, because the list, like I had read the scenarios and I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is kind of this list and that's kind of that list. And then after my first game, which I ended up losing through a bunch of like learning like things like the dodge into line of fire and just some not ideal rolls in very specific situations. I was like, okay, so this is what I'm going to run into. And then it was lunch. So you got to walk around and you look at the armies and you talk to people and get an idea of like what everybody's playing.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I'm just going to face this same list wearing different hats all day long. So I'm only going to play the same. You're going to have a Link, you're going to have a Harris, you're going to have 2 specialists, you're going to have a drop troop, you're going to have this. So I'm going to bring assassins and kill you, and assassins and kill you, and just break those links apart game after game after game.
Mm-hmm.
And like 2 out of 3, I made it.
Mm-hmm.
It's something
that's interesting, because that's actually a really great dovetail into the advice for new players, is that preparing one list that you think can perform the missions, but after you've read the missions, it can be incredibly useful the first time you go. It's really tempting to like make multiple lists that you think are perfectly tailored for one or a particular mission in the thing, but very often you can just switch out maybe a model in your list, and you might be better served like you did, like you were, Owen, by just having a 1-2 punch you're really familiar with that seemed to work on
I
the
had
trend.
made another list thinking that like, okay, this is what I'll play into this scenario, and this is what I'll play into that scenario. And then I realized like very quickly within the first like 20 minutes of watching, like, oh, I see. This is Link team shooting, hacking all over the place, combined with MissileBot, combined with Double Link, combined with this. Like, and then you talk to other people and you're like, it's the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna bring this list every game now. Because while my other one potentially is better at fighting the scenario and like doing the objectives, it doesn't mean anything if I'm going to get killed by this hacking net missile shenanigans.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to play that game. I'm just going to go and scalpel all of those pieces away.
Mhm. Gotcha. And it was useful too because it was your first event back after a big hiatus. And so
Yeah.
you'd figured a familiar sort of like 1-2 combo and you used it and you got to like sharpen it. So I think that's because you ended up seeing some stuff in the meta. So like I think that's interesting is that you checked out the missions and you sort of like made a list that you thought could handle the missions, and then you made a list that you thought could kill things, and then you just opted for kill things during the event.
Yeah.
It's also useful to play the games before. Obviously, you just dove right in. Like I think you came back from Toronto from playing out of Toronto and like dove right into event the next
Later
week.
that day.
Like later that day, I was like 4 hours later, and you were out there playing an Infinity game, which I thought was great. So this is the next one, and I'd like to hear what you guys think about that, which is managing your expectations. So once you've like looked through the missions, you made some lists, you have an idea of what you want to accomplish. I think managing your expectations is really important. And so I got some prompts here. What do you want to get out of the event? What do you think the benefit of going will be? And then what will you do if you lose all 3 games? And what will you do if you win all 3 games? These are some things that I like to ask myself, especially if I'm going to an event for the first time or a tournament for a game. I've never been to a tournament before. And I'd like to hear what you guys think about that, especially you, Dan, because you've been to lots of tournaments, but you've never been to an Infinity tournament. So like going in with expectations, I find can really help me manage the results once I get there and help me parse like the players I play against. Do you have any experience, or have you thought about that at all? Like planning on going to an event?
Yeah, I guess like I'm thinking about like first events that I've played for like different games, whether it be like 40K or War Machine or Malithor or whatever. And it's kind of like the first tournament you go and you just try to remember all your rules of your army. You try to play your army in a way that you're not like, oh my gosh, that was really stupid. Like my games against Owen earlier today, where I was like, why did I bring that baggage remote up when I am the first player so I can throw it in and it dies? That doesn't do anything. And in this mission, it gives me 2 additional orders. So there's no reason for it to come out of hiding, but I put it up front because I was not thinking clearly. And so it's like not doing stuff like that, where it's like, okay, I'll lose, but just play my list somewhat effectively, and I'll die out of the ignorance of other people's tactics and models, but I won't lose because I was stupid with my models. And so that would be the primary goal. If I lost all 3 games, it would all depend on like, did I lose because of ignorance or did I lose because I was playing poorly? And if I won all 3 games, I would put those dice in a special case because that would be the only reason, because I diced the crap out of my opponent.
Right.
But the benefit would definitely be just experience of just learning the game, learning all the stuff I don't know about. What is this? And again, in the tournament, you'll see the more powerful models, and then you'll get to then go home afterwards and go, okay, so this is what I'm playing against. And then instead of looking at lists and what other people do well, it would be more, okay, well, what models do I have? What models do I need to collect to be able to have an answer to these problems? Or what models can I do to cause them as many problems as they caused me? And maybe it's existing models that I already have. I'm just going to play them differently. But no, new events, especially when you're learning, is probably the fastest way to learn. Although it might not be the most enjoyable if all you want to do is win.
I think it could be enjoy. Yeah, definitely. If all you want to do is win, yeah, I think that's the important part of managing your expectations. Like, why are you going, right? And if you're going so that you can see what it's like, I think if you get your head right on it, then you don't really care what the result is, because the result is you went to your first tournament. You know, and if you look at it like that, as, oh, I got to experience what an Infinity tournament is like, the result, like the outcome doesn't matter that much, and you get to go away with that sort of spectrum. I've never done this before, kind of dispelled. And that reminds me vividly, actually, Owen, of you and I think standing in the studio in maybe like 2016 or 2017, and we're planning to go to Adepticon, and you're planning to go and play some Infinity events, and you hadn't played an Infinity event yet. And I think your first one was going to be at Adepticon, and a conversation you and I had about, like, and you were just saying, I want to see how other people who aren't you play, because I played here locally. I played in like some gaming nights at the local gaming stores. I played in a couple like teeny little like 4-person ITS events, but I don't understand. I don't know what to expect. And you're like, I've been through the War Machine Ringer and know what to expect from those guys, but I don't know what to expect from the Infinity players. How did that go? Do you remember that like conversation and then the outcome when you went to Adepticon?
I remember the conversation. I remember going to the Adepticon event there, and I remember being it was, my expectation was like what happens in the 40K event at Adepticon. In the 40K Adepticon event, for those of you that don't know, is the sweatiest, most plannedest fucking tournament. Like the number of people who I'd encounter who'd be like, I have been fine-tuning my list and every mechanic for the last year. Like the second I walked out of Adepticon last year, I had been building my list for this year. And then I played at the Infinity one, and it was like, yeah, I've played Infinity before.
Yeah.
There, and then mixed into that were like, yeah, I have a podcast, or I do this, or I've played 5,000 games of me and the 3 people in our region, and I'm now number 2 on the ITS or whatever. And it's like there's no in between.
Yeah, it's true. And the game was relatively young then. I mean, it wasn't young, but it wasn't, the ITS scene wasn't nearly as big back then too. So that's worth mentioning.
So you go out and you're like, one person you play is like, what, how strong is an HMG again? It's like, whoa, all right. This isn't what I was expecting. And then the next person you play is like, oh yes, you've got the Lieutenant so and so, this, that, and that. It's like, yes.
Hey,
yes,
in our
I
game
do.
today, you didn't know the strength of a heavy shotgun.
That's fair.
If it has heavy in the name, it's usually 15.
I had it in my head that it was 14, but I'm thinking boarding shotgun.
Right.
Is boarding shotgun still a thing?
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's so valuable for people to hear that, Owen, that when you have an expectation going into like a big event, and then it gets subverted by like the reality of like, oh, there's people here from all different experience levels, and there's going to be people at every event that are also just starting off. And I don't think that's changed. I don't think, even if Infinity goes to being like a 50-year-old, you know, like this is the game that your grandpa played, miniature game, that there won't still be new people coming and going, because people drift in and out of playing these things, you know, as an organized play and sort of competitively and seriously. And so you're always going to have a mix of experience levels, and I think that's a really valuable takeaway, is that your vision of what it's going to be like is almost never as dire as it's never quite as dire as what your vision of it's going to be like when you get there. It's almost always more relaxed and much more of a mixed bag. And you typically find your people at an event like that and end up playing against them, because it's ranked that way. If you lose your first game, you're going to play a bunch of guys that you can probably have a great game with, because they're going to be asking the same questions you ask. You'll be learning together. And it's that kind of game, right, where communication is so key.
I find to kind of answer these questions in my perspective, like what I'm always interested in the events is just like, what is everyone doing? Like, how do you solve the puzzle that is this game? In like, what do you feel are the appropriate things that you use to do it? And that, like, that's the enjoyment that I get out of it, is what else, what is everyone doing? Like, it's the same idea of like, the event that I went to here, having not played with anybody in the meta, anyone in the region, didn't really know anybody's names, just showed up one day, and it was like, oh, this is neat. This is what everyone's doing here. You get to chat with a bunch of people, kind of like see who it is that you'd like to play more with and stuff like that. Like, if I lose all 3 of my games, that's great. It means I have to go back and reassess the way I'm thinking about this, that the problems change to such a degree that I'm no longer like, I'm not paying attention. Like, I don't know what to do. And if I win them all, I actually I dislike that. Like, I find that I have to like armies get shelved whenever I win events.
I've never seen you more bored with the game than when you think you have it solved. When things like when you have something that you can just repeat and people either don't see it coming or don't adjust to it or whatever, and
or they can't adjust to it because it's another this was the Shazvasti thing where I had started playing that and then almost immediately stopped playing them. Like, I immediately went back to just playing Hakaslam and other things because it was like, oh, I could just bring 8 Tagas. All right, well,
and this is an N3.
I'm done with
listening
this
now. It's not that bad anymore. The hard model cap fixed that quite a bit.
22 models, 8 of which are Tigers.
Yeah, it was obnoxious. I had to beat my head against that a few times.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. As just like a callback to something we said earlier, right? Getting to play a variety of people and re-experience the game. I think is one of the real strengths of Infinity. You get to almost start from scratch whenever you change factions. Whenever you go to an event and someone new shows up and shakes things up, I think I've seen a bunch of posts in the Facebook group for the Calgary Infinity, just talking about you guys coming in and shaking things up and playing different armies and screwing around like your double Maggie list and people joking and mentioning it. It's kind of that what's that movie Catfish, that catfish thing, the catfish keep the other fish moving. That is a great thing in Infinity, is more people trying more lists and joining into an event shakes things up and makes the game interesting again.
Yeah, nobody likes tags. I'm gonna bring tags in every list.
Really? Nobody likes tags? Wow.
Except for Ariadna. I don't know what I'm gonna do there. Maybe just all dogs.
No, that's a tag. You can take the Chernobog. The Chernobog's
all parachutists.
Chernobog's great. I like Chernobog.
Yeah, like when I was playing a few games against the locals, it was just like, oh, you brought a tag. And I was like, yeah.
I mean, that happens in communities though. Like Owen said earlier, communities settle, right? They settle into, oh, this is the thing. You know what I mean? And then someone comes in and shakes it up and they have to readjust and goes, well, I'm not part of that belief system. I'm gonna take whatever I feel like taking. And all of a sudden everyone has to go, oh, that climbing tag is killing my whole army from the top of the ceiling right now.
It's burst 5?
It's burst 5 and it can stick to walls?
It can shoot 3 of my guys at the same time and win.
Yeah. I think it's a way of I almost think I think I made the Blood Bowl reference earlier today, Dan, which both of you will get, is it's why there's like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 Infinity armies too, right? Once you get bored of the tier 1 armies, you move on to the tier 2 and the tier 3. I think I described N2A like that earlier today, where they're the armies you can dip in for a challenge, right? Because they don't necessarily have like a cohesive theme, and it's
where's O12
interesting. There is no O12, but some of their units show up occasionally. There's no like rogue cops. Oh, O12? I don't know. I think all the vanilla factions
solid tier 2.
I think all the vanilla factions are tier 1. I think all the vanilla factions are tier 1 just because of the availability of choice. You get so many units and so many options. Yeah, I think all the vanilla factions are pretty tier 1, pretty evenly matched, except for Pano. Pano sucks.
You went this a totally different way. All right, fair.
Pano sucks. So anyway, so there we go. Expectations. I would agree with everything you guys just said. I think whenever I go to an event, well, I like hosting events. That's different for me because I like hosting events. I like seeing people have a good time. And so obviously that's coming through in my kind of philosophy of like, if you go to an event with an expectation of the outcome, you're going to have a better time. I like seeing everybody in an event, even the people that come in last place have a good time. And so I think that's a really important thing to ask yourself beforehand. And I think both you guys brought up some really great points from very different experience levels in the game. So I don't have too much to add. So part 2 is on the day. on the day you've gone to your first event, what should you do when you get there?
I would also, just real quick,
Sure.
one other thing you should do before you go: measuring tape, tokens.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. How about your
all
stuff?
of the things, to play the event. Your classified deck. If you don't have one, reach out in advance. Guaranteed, your
Mhm.
TO or your community will have additional of everything, because
Yeah.
that's how this game goes.
Yeah.
But nothing sucks more than when you show up and you don't have anything, and no one knows that you don't have anything. So you have to like constantly do the question. I've been there. I've made mistakes and forgotten stuff. It happens to everybody. It's easy if you just say it in
Yeah.
advance.
I literally forgot my tape measure when I went to that ITS at Black Knight back in November. I was like, do you guys have any for sale? And Jay's like, I just have this one with a Black Knight logo on it. I was like, I guess I'm buying that. And I went and bought one. And then I wanted a measuring gauge because the tape measure was driving me crazy and they didn't have any measuring gauges for sale. So I went and bought a like steel ruler from Army Painter that's meant for like cutting plastic cards. So I used that for the entire event. It was a little 8-inch like steel ruler that was used for like modeling.
But just one more little piece for new players is just come prepared.
Yeah, have your stuff. Have print off lists. If you can too, print off the scenarios. It's really useful. Like people say, like, oh, it's on your phone. You have it on your phone. Print off your scenarios and print off your lists. It's so much easier to have the paper in front of you than it is to play off your phone. And it lets your opponent have your courtesy list too. Your opponent will feel a lot better about playing you if they can see your courtesy list. And your TO will as well. So on the day, first things first, I actually did mention a couple of those things I don't brought up, but the first one is ask the Warcry TO any questions you might have. So if you have like any lack of clarity about like the day or the timing or anything like that, go and talk to the Warcry TO. Even just introduce yourself, like talk to the person that's running this thing, because that way they know who you are and you know who they are. Talk to your opponent and look at the table before your first game. Ask anything you want to know about the terrain and their opponent's courtesy list, about their army. Start communicating right from the very beginning. And more importantly, if this is your first event, talk about every piece of terrain on the table and ask any questions you might have about it. Like if there's clumps of trees on the table, you and your opponent should agree what they count as before the game starts, or ask your TO if you guys can't agree. But get all that stuff hashed out before you start rolling dice and putting models down. Next one is talk it out during the game. Never hesitate, ever. And as a worker, I've said this at the beginning of every event I've ever run. Never hesitate to put your finger anywhere on the table and say, what do I know about that can see this spot? You should do that before every action where you want to move a model or change something. It's the social contract in action. And the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it, the better your communication with your opponent's going to be. And then when you're done,
respond to that question with, from what you can see, no one can see that.
That was prevented, though. He said, the question itself says, what do I know about that can see this spot?
Fair enough.
So
you always respond and you double down on it.
Yeah, you try to double down on the paranoia. On with the psyops, always nothing you know about can see that spot.
Yeah.
I've been trying to incorporate that more in my games, and it makes the game a lot more functional and a lot easier and enjoyable to play, because there's no gotchas of like, come around the corner, ha! It's just kind of, hey, if I put this model here, if I come around this corner, can you see me?
Let's sit down. We'll put the little token down. Yeah, it looks like I can see you. So then, even if it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe he couldn't actually see. You realize later on, you both agreed at the time. That's good enough.
Yeah, and when you're meeting new people for the first time, reinforcing that social contract, it gets rid of all the awkwardness. Like start talking early and just get all that stuff on the table, because when you're playing a stranger in your first few events, and that's usually what happens, you're gonna be playing strangers when you go to these events, playing people from out of town, from all over the place, and meeting people for the first time. Having a great game means communicating, and you will always own the result of a game where you made informed decisions, where you asked and got the best information you could before you made a decision. And the dice rolls are the dice rolls. You don't worry about them so much. You don't feel that tilt.
Ash, are you asking nerds to be social?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever observed this, Dan, but when people who typically are introverted are passionate about a subject, they instantly turn to extroverted. If you've ever watched my son talk about Minecraft, trying to get him to talk about, I don't know, the weather, and he'll be bored to death. But if you want to ask him about Minecraft, he'll talk to you for hours. It's like that kid from Mitchell's versus the Machines who wants to talk about dinosaurs. He'll talk to you about dinosaurs all day. And then when you're done, thank your opponent for the game and take the time in between rounds to ask questions about what they were thinking while it was going on, or what they were worried you might do that you either didn't do or could have leaned into. You can often learn a lot about your army by seeing what the other side was fretting about. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that, because that is one of the most valuable things I've ever done at an event is go, so the event's done. Even if I win, like, is there anything you wished like that you were like worried I was going to do that I didn't do? Because I'd love to hear that. And then I offer that same information. Like, I was terrified you were going to blah, or you were going to do this, or you're going to do that. And that's a really useful download. Have you guys ever experienced that?
Not. I don't think I've done that much. Maybe a little bit, like in casual games, but never in tournament day.
I find that it's something that comes up, especially if you win in a fight, in a game, where you go like, I was concerned that this was what you're going to do, or hey, I would really remember that guy can do that thing, because that might help you into the later today.
I'd always offer that as a winner. Yeah. Especially if someone doesn't ask, if they're looking like they're glum or they didn't like the result, they didn't have a great time. That's a great point, Owen.
It's like, here's these pieces that you had that I was concerned about, that I feel you didn't use to their full potential. And it may be that you aren't aware that that's that much of a threat in this situation. Or if you come across my army again, you see this little guy's a great linchpin.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy can that thing that happened to you, this guy right here, I was horribly worried that you were gonna unleash him on this and it would undo what I was planning.
Yeah. Or when you see this guy lining up, remember he's gonna do insert ability.
Yeah.
And through that combination of abilities, this is the outcome you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easy as a veteran player. You got to be careful because you don't want to come off as like super serious. But if you're having that post game and someone asks you that question, be honest too, because I've said those things, Owen, even in response to someone saying like, is there anything that I could have done differently, or how do you feel that game went? And I'll be like, oh dude, there was this and this that definitely could help you out, and if you remember that the rest of the event, I think you have a great game next game. Again, it just comes down to good communication, and you're not trying to, it's not even information that you were like hiding during the game. Because it's not like you're not answering questions or talking things out with people, but there can very often be times where even you thinking about the game that just happened, if you won it, can go, oh man, thank God this didn't happen, or thank God I killed this guy earlier. Thank God that you stumbled into something that your opponent had control over. And it's a good thing that didn't happen.
Or you get the lucky situation. You get the crit on a 4, and it's like, ooh, that whole game. Like I was on the verge of getting wiped out on the one side, and then a guy who shouldn't have won through chance. And with everything going against it, you got it in the end. And like that's where I know everyone leans on dice and is like, oh, dice betrayed me. And it's like, well, yeah, they did, but like,
well, it can be non-rule and tactic related too. It can call right back to last episode where I've said to people after games like, you spent 7 orders trying to kill this one guy, and you could have just walked this other guy over around the corner and sat there, right? Like it's pointing out tilt, it's pointing out like
at what point was you
loss of objectivity
and killing that guy winning you this scenario?
Yeah, pointing out that lack of objectivity or just trying to help them get back on track of being objective.
Now, when you fail whip checks trying to push buttons, what can you do?
That's
you only do so much.
Time. That's when you just go. Yeah, that's when you walk to the bar and you buy a beer. That's that's a whole other different download.
When you failed those 4 whip 15s, I did win. You're right.
When someone grinds their link team to extinction against some ARO piece or some like hard target they couldn't like crack, and you go, oh, they really just needed to go into the zone and have their bodies there, and you would have scored that round and been up by 2. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a conversation at the end. Especially, don't be afraid to ask, because most people who've been playing the game for a long time will either have seen it or be thinking about it after the game. And I would say 90% of Infinity players are more than happy to offer you that answer. And I think there's a lot of times it will come back to some stuff that we shared last episode about those moments where even if you won, there could be moments like that where you could have won bigger, or you could have won easier, or you could have like not been as stressed out over the course of the game. by making a different decision and not necessarily losing some of your objectivity. And it's easy at your first few Infinity tournaments to feel like you're rushed, you're playing under a clock, you have a time limit, and to
you
lose
are,
that. Yeah,
for the record,
absolutely.
nothing is more bitter for both players than only getting to turn 2.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is a good point.
Better to
Be
play,
efficient.
lose, and move on than
Yeah.
to be trapped in a like, if hey guys, 40 minutes left.
Yeah.
Like, just
spend
take
your
the L,
orders.
go
Just
big,
spend your orders.
roll
Yeah,
the
spend
crit.
your
Like,
orders.
don't worry about it.
Yeah, spend the orders. Yeah, and Infinity is a game where unfortunately unscrupulous players can sandbag, especially on any of the end state scenarios. If somebody's just a slow player and then they're in all 3 zones with more points and it's turn 2 and they're going second and they bled it all the time and you don't get that last turn to push them out, even if they've overexposed themselves or made terrible decisions, like I've seen it happen. There's been a few games where the guy who maybe didn't deserve to win and sandbagged the whole game ended up winning, and that's a really bitter pill to swallow. So make sure you're being time conscious, but without losing that objectivity. All right, then part 3 is after the event is over, so not on the day anymore, and it's debriefing yourself. There's a North American saying that's called Monday morning quarterbacking. And what that means is taking a look at any of the feedback you got from your opponents or that you kind of observed in yourself for consistency or similarity, and consider what that means overall and see if you can take away anything from playing so many games in a single day. Like if in 3 of 3 games you ground a hitting piece or a gunfighter to pieces against a target that was too hard, remember that you did that and try and look for other solutions to those problems the next time you play a game. There's almost always something valuable to learn when something comes up more than once in a series of games that you play back to back to back, about how you play and what you're playing, or about your list design. It could be about a bunch of different topics, but that's where, after you've like gone away from the event and you sit and you think about it for a minute, there's a useful download afterwards. And especially if you went with a group, like if you took 2 or 3 friends, or you got it with it, you made a friend over the course of it, or a buddy from the local game store was in the same event as you, have that conversation a couple days later, and you can usually pull something useful out of things that come up more than once. And at the end, be proud of your performance, no matter what it was. The things you should grade yourself on are not how you placed in the event. That could be a part of it, but it's more about how did you feel about those outcomes and your expectations when you went in. Did you meet your own expectations? Did you learn something new about how you play? Did you meet some new people that you were going to play against? Did you get the thing that you wanted out of the event, right? Did you benefit from playing multiple scenarios in the day? And ask yourself how you did communicating, learning, and debriefing, because those are the real skills that let you stay on mission and score higher in the future. So no matter how you do in that first event, those are the actual skills you're practicing going to an ITS, right? It's communicating well, learning about your army and your opponent's armies and the variety of interactions that can happen in Infinity, and then how to debrief yourself, how to talk about the game after it's over, and how to get the best sort of like learning situation out of playing so many games in a single day. Did you guys have any thoughts about that?
I'll just comment on, like I said, the last event I went to and like the debriefing of that I like went through myself. Having like in retrospect, I think I lost 2 and I went 2-1 or 1-2 or something. Moral of the story was games were not won is kind of the perspective that I had, and it was like I am much more out of the loop on the game than I thought I was, like that I remember. Like more minor things have changed and more unit profiles are not what they used to be than I thought was the case.
There's more drift. Yeah.
And so like a lot of the things that I'm used to as staples and the things that I remembered as like, here's what this does and here's how effective it is, the math wasn't quite the same anymore. Like the things that you would have beaten before, you couldn't necessarily beat now, right, and vice versa. And so it made it very much like, cool, I got to play a bunch of different people who I can play again now going forward. Like there's game days and stuff like that, and I can now start trying to just unpack like, how do you do this again? What are the viable choices? What should I do in this situation? What should I do in that? Like if I'm going to play against Toha, what does the Toha look like now? Like, I don't think I see Gal Rails as much, but now there's this new size 5 or 6 guy who seems to be a monster, and I'm gonna have to learn how to deal with that and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's useful in and of itself, that you discovered sort of like where the game had moved away from you. And knowing you, I think that kind of that revitalizes your interest in the game usually. That's where you start to get interested in, oh, I don't know everything about this anymore. I get to go and like have that experience of figuring it out again. And you made some sort of like judgments. I think the big thing I remember from that first event was you feeling like the missile bot spam was really prevalent. And all the things I heard you come up with were sort of like current meta hot topic discussions online too. So it seemed very on brand that they would be the things you picked up on, because they were things that the community was kind of talking about, like arrow spotlighting and lots of missile bots and just this stuff that had sort of like gone into the zeitgeist and people were talking about even on the internet. Were your takeaways from going to that event, which I thought was really cool, because it meant that those same people in the community that were talking about it were going to events and playing it and trying it out, and that there was some real world impact on those conversations. It wasn't just like random theorizing on the internet. It was actually stuff that was being applied in the real world. And then the net sort of result I saw that was you bought a JSA army. You bought something that was different and off brand and tried to win with it, which is your usual MO. You went against the grain.
Well, I was like, yeah, I'm still like, I don't know. I'm much more incentivized. Like, I'm more interested right now in getting away from Core Link, Harris Team, Missilbot, HackerNet. Like, if I'm gonna run into that every game, I'm not gonna play it. I just refuse. I'm gonna go play Double Maggie and see where we get. That was my like takeaway.
Yeah, well, you saw what the meta was moving towards and what was sort of common in the meta, and then you immediately ran the other direction, which is your usual MO. It's what I've like. I think is one of your strengths as an Infinity player is you try and subvert expectations and bring things people aren't expecting. And so to see what the commonalities were in a lot of lists that were being built and played locally to you, I think was useful information, because yes, of course you decided that was what you weren't going to do from like a quasi ethical standpoint, but also it just wasn't interesting to you because it was common. And so you started to go and hunt for things that were different, like smiley face Harris bike teams and total reaction, weird chibi bots and stuff like that. Like, not total action, total immunity. So I think that's I think that's a useful takeaway, right? You get to see by going to that event sort of like what the kind of landscape is for the game. And that made you I think gather a bunch of data and then get to do some stuff afterwards. What about you, Dan? I mean, you haven't played an event, but you've played a bunch of games now. Has it shaped how you feel about the faction I force you to play? Like, has it made you like, I didn't say force you to play, but then I basically shoved at you and said, now you play Infinity. You're out of excuses. Does it shape like how you look at other factions? Like, has it made you interested in other factions to play the faction that you played? Like, are you into like faction monogamy?
So I'm pretty faction monogamous for the most part, until it's like there's some things like I remember like when I was playing 40K, I played the crap out of orcs, and the original thing of me playing orcs was the other 3 factions I wanted to play were already being played by other people.
You didn't have a choice about that either.
And so I was like, well, I'll play this one, I guess. And then I remember Matt, childhood friend, was like, just don't paint them cartoony because that'll look stupid. And that was okay. I guess I'm playing orcs. And then I just owned the crap out of that faction, and I loved it. And I found what was enjoyable in the faction and played the crap out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then around 6th edition, I think it was, or 5th edition. No, I think it was 6th edition, where it was like in close combat, even when you grab models from the front. And I was like, let me go with my close combat boys, where they can't shoot, but they can close combat. Oh wait, your guys attack first. You kill so many boys that when I move in, I don't get to go in combat. But then at the end of the turn, we move in again because those are the rules. And then you get to hit me again without me doing anything at all. Okay, I'm done with orcs. This is bull crap. oh, my knob with the power claw is the only thing that can do damage. Oh, you get to challenge me and kill me right off the bat. Okay, so now my faction doesn't function anymore with these new rules. What the crap is this? And so then I started playing other factions or tried to play other things
Right.
in 40K. So I mean, I haven't found that yet with O12. Until I experience that, I will keep playing O12.
I don't think Infinity's capable of that, to be honest with you, because a guy's a guy and a gun's a gun's
yeah,
a
they're
gun
not
in
that different.
Infinity,
They're
right?
not that
Like
different.
your factions are just the to what degree do you get access to the the 77 pieces of equipment and 120 pieces of equipment and 77 skills that make up the game,
So
right? Like it's
now,
just it's your ingredients.
it's like what I was saying earlier. I was like looking at Starmada and O12, and I was like, okay, so Starmada is more like okay, you got your core, you got your Harris, and you got that, just like every other faction kind of thing.
Well, they're the
So
sectorial. Yeah, they're the one that
right?
they get those sectorial bonuses.
Yeah, but I was like, but why did the vanilla factions exist? And why are people playing them? Because like the direct bonuses aren't like that extra blast or the extra Blix's skill. They all seem like really good bonuses. And the few games of Starmada I played, I was like, yeah, it's like really enjoyable to kind of make crappy units good units or whatever. But then I just was kind of like, I want to figure out how to play vanilla. I want to be able to, if someone comes in and screws over or assassinates one of my Harris teams, it's not like my gameplay falls apart. And so I actually want to focus on O12 more so that I learn how to actually use the most out of every model.
Mm-hmm. And have way more options too. You get so many more unit profiles. Yeah.
And then you have all the options and cool stuff. And then I don't know how long it's going to take. Then I'll start experimenting with Starmada more.
Yeah.
So I'll have basically all the models.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But so yeah, I really want to focus on the vanilla O12 and just kind of see what's there. And so it's kind of exciting to see. And I want to be able to beat all these Harrises and Core teams with just my vanilla stuff. And I want to figure out how to do that. And I think that's going to be my moment of satisfaction and kind of goal when playing Infinity right now. And I'm still like screwing up everything and forgetting rules and
right.
I'm just like, oh yeah, and it's like activate this guy and he's going to move over here. And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's
instant regret.
I just wasted that order. It's like, oh wait, no, that was part of the duo. I should have had them as a duo when I deployed, so I can make more effective.
I got you. You're still getting your skis under you.
Yeah. So long story short, I can see myself playing O12 for the foreseeable future.
So for me, one of the things that I love seeing in events, and this is something I think you might experience in the near future, Dan, is a lot of factions in Infinity, especially the vanilla factions, have some overlap with other units in the game. We were just talking actually off mic about your O12 having access to things like Andromeda, so some Aleph units, right? And Hector, and then other units like the Monstrucker, like you said, these units that bleed into other factions. One of my favorite experiences in Infinity is when I have a sprinkling of a different faction built into my faction, and then I go to an event and I play against that parent faction. I see that model in action somewhere else, and I go, oh, I'm only like 5 or 10 models away from actually just playing Aleph with the models I have already. Like I could just go play Aleph. And that I love that. I love that there's a lot of like cross faction overlap in Infinity and the hyperpowers and stuff too. So that it's actually, you find your collection actually, you already have another faction. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing O12, you already have like a bunch of things that you could be playing that are just Aleph models. Like you could go tomorrow and be like, oh well, I've got a Diva and I've got myself some Dakini tac bots, and I got a Hector and got this, and you could just be, and I got Hippolyta. Like they're all just Aleph units, right? Like you could just be playing Aleph. And so I think that's cool, is that like you almost already play another faction just by owning the current faction that you have. And that's where I think Infinity becomes really enjoyable as you stretch around and move it into new directions. And there's not, it's not like, yeah, but it's not like buying
being the kind of person who wants to play Aleph.
Imagine being more human than human. You played Aleph, you dipshit.
Thank you, Ash. That was the
For
joke.
years. Oh, that was the joke. That's right. I just made it up. You did play it.
I was actually having the conversation with Owen the other day, being like, I own a lot of Aleph units.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, and you could always just, what I would do is I would paint like some cross faction stuff on like your copper bots and your fuzz bots. You know what I mean? So like you could, like, it doesn't really matter size 3 as long as they have the right guns and they're size 3 and size 4. You could easily just cross purpose all your bots and stuff too. You know what I mean? Like these are just
Yeah.
on loan from the cops to Aleph or vice versa.
Go all the way. Don't put the weapons on them and just claim they have everything.
Oh god, that was all of your Hack-a-Slum remotes. I didn't know what the fuck anything was for most of it.
They just have chicken legs and
That's
they
right.
have every gun they need in the situation.
It all
that they
comes
need
out of their eye hole, Ash. That's the
Yeah.
it's the big middle eye hole. Sometimes it shoots rockets, sometimes it shoots machine gun bullets,
It goes in the square hole. Okay.
then comes out the round hole. So there we go. So that's it. That's our advice on talking about going to events, what you can get out of it, some practical advice about doing it, and I think why it's really important that new players go and play a bunch of games in a day. It's useful. I think Infinity is an event, or not an event, a game that benefits from playing more different people more often, and seeing the different sort of like the kaleidoscope of different armies out there and ways that the game can be played. So go find an event. You can let us know what you think about how to approach playing in events in Infinity. You can reach out to us on Patreon, Discord, Facebook, or on Spotify. And there's links in the podcast description. I'd like to thank all of our patrons so far. We got about 20 of you guys. You guys are amazing. And it's been fun hanging out with you guys in the patron Discord and answering your questions and hearing your feedback. And it really has helped populate, I think, where the podcast has gone so far. So big thanks for listening, and for you guys, Owen and Dan, for jumping in and talking about this one, despite our argument. And you can tell us later in the comments about
I don't remember an
face-to-face rolls.
We're about to go offline and just argue for 3 hours.
That's
about
right.
face-to-face rolls.
That's right. About face-to-face rolls. So you guys can tell us.
Next week we'll have a conclusion.
I can't wait for next week's show notes so that we can see who was the winner of this.
I already said you're probably right.
I did.
Doesn't mean I like it.
Sandbagging already. He's sandbagging already. And on that high note of my impending victory, good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.